on Earth's last great stronghold, a sprawling, subterranean citadel known as Sanctum Prime. The mission was born. Its architects were shadows themselves, military leaders, rogue diplomats, and strategists who saw annihilation as the only alternative to submission. At the center of this conspiracy stood Director Neil Harvey, a hardened, calculating tactician. He paced the briefing chamber, his boots clinking against the polished steel floor as he studied the man before him. "You're certain he's the one?" Harvey asked, his voice devoid of emotion. Across from him stood Commander Watson, a grizzled officer with cybernetic enhancements etched into his frame. His single organic eye narrowed. "No one else can do it. He doesn't flinch, doesn't fail. He's exactly what we need." The man in question, seated silently in the shadows, radiated an almost supernatural stillness. Agent 47, Earth's most lethal weapon, was no ordinary soldier, a product of clandestine genetic engineering programs. He was a man stripped of excess. No emotions, no attachments, only purpose. His bald head gleamed under the sterile light, and his piercing, ice-blue eyes locked onto Harvey's with an intensity that bordered on unsettling. Harvey placed both hands on the edge of the metal table separating them. "Let's be clear. This mission isn't a battle. It's theater. You'll wear a mask, diplomat, emissary, whatever the Council expects to see. Behind that mask, you'll be the hand that topples the dominoes. Do you understand?" Agent 47 inclined his head slightly, his expression impassive. "Understood." Harvey straightened, his face betraying the faintest flicker of unease. Even for a man like him, accustomed to wielding death as a tool, there was something chilling about giving such power to someone so dispassionate. "We're giving you the credentials of a fabricated Earth envoy," Harvey continued. "Your mission is to infiltrate the Galactic Council. Get close to the targets. Kill them. Each death needs to appear natural or as a result of factional sabotage. No traces, no mistakes." Watson leaned forward, his mechanical arm whirring faintly. "Let me make this simple. The Council thinks humanity is weak. By the time you're done, they'll be too busy tearing each other apart to notice us rising from the ashes." The holographic projector in the center of the table hummed to life, casting the room in a soft blue glow. A rotating image of the Galactic Council's chamber appeared, a massive, ring-shaped structure orbiting a neutral asteroid, its architecture a blend of countless alien styles. Surrounding it were profiles of the primary council members, their alien visages varying wildly. The towering, tree-like arboreal elder, the amphibious strategist from the water world of Hydros, the reptilian mercantile overlord, and finally, the insectoid supreme mediator, the council's leader. "These are your targets," Harvey said, gesturing to the holograms. "Each represents a key pillar of the council's power. Remove them, and the entire structure collapses. But remember, they're not just leaders. They're symbols. Their deaths must send a message without pointing directly at us." Agent 47 studied the holograms with a detached intensity. Each target was more than a name or a face. They were challenges to be solved, puzzles waiting for the right solution. As the briefing continued, Harvey outlined the finer details of 47's cover identity. He would pose as Ambassador Victor Terran, a seasoned diplomat tasked with rebuilding Earth's ties to the galactic community. The identity was meticulously crafted, complete with a history of forged negotiations and fabricated alliances. "You'll have access to the Council's chambers, but don't get comfortable," Watson warned. "The Council's security is tighter than ever. One wrong step, and you're as good as dead." Agent 47's response was as cold and precise as his reputation. "I don't make wrong steps." The conversation shifted to logistics, the tools of the trade. Embedded in 47's diplomatic gear were concealed weapons, biochemical agents, and hacking devices, all designed to blend seamlessly into his cover. His watch, a seemingly innocuous accessory, housed a hidden energy blade. His briefcase could deploy a drone capable of sabotage or reconnaissance. Every detail had been accounted for, But as the plan took shape, a question lingered unspoken in the air. It was Harvey who finally voiced it, his tone heavy. You understand what's at stake. This isn't just about survival. If you fail, humanity won't get another chance. Agent 47 stood, his movements fluid and deliberate. He adjusted his tailored black suit, the epitome of a professional. Failure isn't an option, he said simply, his voice devoid of bravado yet laced with finality. The room fell silent, the weight of the mission settling over them like a storm cloud. Harvey nodded, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. Not in 47's abilities, but in the morality of the path they had chosen. As Agent 47 exited the chamber, his steps echoing in the corridor beyond, Watson leaned toward Harvey. You think he'll make it back? Harvey's gaze lingered on the now empty doorway. That's not the question we should be asking, he murmured. The question is whether we'll recognize the galaxy when he's done. In the stillness that followed, the holographic council chamber flickered, its alien figures spinning in eerie silence. Somewhere among the stars, the first domino awaited its fall. The Galactic Council's headquarters loomed ahead like an omnipotent sentinel of order and control, its enormous ring-shaped structure orbiting the neutral asteroid of Aethra Prime. Its surface shimmered with iridescent plating, an amalgamation of alien technologies symbolizing unity or domination, depending on perspective. For Agent 47, it was a chessboard, and he had just made his opening move. Dressed in the pristine, dark attire of Ambassador Victor Terran, 47 stepped off the shuttle with deliberate precision. The station's arrival platform swirled with activity, populated by dignitaries of countless species. Tall insectoids clicked their mandibles in conversation. Amphibians glided across the floor in fluid, almost hypnotic motions, and hulking, quadrupedal beasts spoke in low, guttural tones. The cacophony of alien languages blended into a symphony of galactic politics. A humanoid alien approached him, its crystalline skin refracting the light. Its voice was melodic, but carried an edge of suspicion. Ambassador Terran, your arrival is unexpected. Earth has been distant. 47 inclined his head, his expression practiced and diplomatic. Earth recognizes its missteps and seeks to rebuild trust. My presence here is a gesture of goodwill. The alien, a Vailian usher, studied him for a moment before nodding. Very well. You'll find the council chambers ahead. The arboreal elder has called for an open session. You may observe, as he moved deeper into the station, 47 took in every detail. The locations of security personnel, the subtle surveillance systems embedded in the walls, the layout of the corridors. Each observation was cataloged and stored in the meticulous database of his mind. The council chamber, the heart of galactic governance, was a sight to behold. It was an expansive amphitheater with tiered seating encircling a central podium. Massive screens displayed data feeds, translating the spoken languages of the delegates into comprehensible text. In the center stood the arboreal elder, towering over the rest with its ancient, tree-like form. Its bark glistened as though wet, and bioluminescent tendrils pulsed along its limbs. This council cannot remain idle, the elder intoned, its deep voice resonating like a storm through the chamber. The recent unrest among the outer colonies threatens our unity. It is imperative we act decisively. 47's gaze flicked across the other council members. Each target sat in their designated section, surrounded by their advisors. The amphibious strategist of Hydros, its smooth, glistening skin catching the light, was engaged in a whispered conversation. The reptilian mercantile overlord, adorned in shimmering gold, tapped its claws impatiently against the edge of its console. This was the stage, and 47 had entered as a silent performer. The first target was the arboreal elder. It was not only a respected leader, but also a stabilizing figure among the council factions. Its demise would send ripples through the galaxy. The elder maintained a private sanctuary, a sprawling arboretum housed within the station. Under the guise of exploring the council's facilities, 47 secured an invitation to visit the Arboretum. The sanctuary was breathtaking, a verdant paradise of alien flora encased within a transparent dome that revealed the vast expanse of space beyond. The elder stood at the center, its bioluminescent tendrils weaving patterns in the air as it communed with the plants around it. "You humans lack the patience of the old roots," the elder remarked as 47 approached. Its tone was neither accusatory nor warm. It was a detached observation of an ancient being. "We have much to learn," 47 replied, his tone carefully respectful. "Perhaps from beings like yourself." The elder chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. "And yet your species wages war against time itself, always rushing, always consuming." As the elder turned back to its plants, 47 activated the small vial concealed within his cufflink. Inside was a genetically engineered fungal spore, designed to mimic a natural disease that could infect the elder's kind. With a flick of his wrist, the spores dispersed invisibly into the air, carried by the Arboretum's gentle breeze. "The key to longevity," 47 said smoothly, stepping closer, "is understanding when to yield and when to endure." The elder paused, as if considering his words. But 47's gaze was already on the shifting hues of the elder's tendrils. The spores were taking effect. Within moments, faint discoloration appeared along its bark, a subtle, almost imperceptible sign. "I will take my leave," 47 said, bowing slightly. "Your wisdom humbles me." The elder nodded, distracted by a sudden inexplicable fatigue. By the time its advisors noticed the illness, it would be too late to trace its origins. The second target, the strategist of Hydros, presented a more complex challenge. Known for its military acumen, the strategist resided within an aquatic habitat, an underwater complex connected to the main station via pressurized tunnels. Access required special clearance, which 47 secured through a combination of subtle hacking and diplomatic maneuvering. The habitat was an engineering marvel. Glass corridors carved through deep, azure waters, where alien marine life swam freely. The strategist greeted him in its native environment, floating gracefully in a large, dome-shaped chamber filled with water. "Earth's ambassador," it said, its voice distorted through the translator embedded in the glass. "To what do I owe this honor?" "Earth seeks to learn from the best," 47 replied, his tone light yet deliberate. "Your strategies have shaped the galaxy's balance of power." The strategist's eyes gleamed with pride. "Flattery from a human? I must admit, I didn't expect this from your kind." As the conversation continued, 47's sharp eyes scanned the room. The habitat's oxygen filtration system was housed within a secure console at the chamber's edge. With practiced subtlety, he activated a device concealed in his watch, sending a silent signal to the console. "You understand that strength is the only currency that matters," the strategist continued, its voice growing more animated. "Unity comes second." "An interesting perspective," 47 said, his tone measured. A faint hum filled the room as the filtration system's parameters shifted. Invisible but lethal, trace amounts of a gaseous compound began to seep into the water. The strategist paused mid-sentence, its movements becoming sluggish. "What is?" It began, but the words dissolved into bubbles as it thrashed weakly. Alarms blared, and 47 feigned alarm, rushing toward the exit as security systems activated. Within moments, the strategist's lifeless body sank to the floor of its chamber, the cause of death appearing to be a tragic system malfunction. Back in his quarters, 47 reflected on the events of the day. The arboreal elder and the strategist were gone, their deaths seemingly unrelated, yet already sowing distrust among the council factions. Messages of suspicion and blame spread through the station like wildfire. As 47 prepared for his next move, he studied the profiles of his remaining targets. Each death would bring him closer to destabilizing the council, but also closer to exposure. He adjusted his tie, his expression unreadable. The deaths of the arboreal elder and the strategist sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. News of their sudden and mysterious end spread like wildfire, igniting suspicion and paranoia. Within hours, factions began whispering accusations, each convinced that rival species were sabotaging the fragile peace. In the shadow of this chaos, Agent 47 observed quietly, his role as a composed diplomat masking the methodical predator beneath. Seated at a diplomatic luncheon hosted by the mercantile overlord, 47 allowed himself a moment to study his next target. The overlord, a reptilian figure of imposing stature, exuded an air of greed and cunning. Its scales shimmered gold under the station's artificial lights, a visual reminder of its species' mastery of intergalactic trade. It was the architect of Earth's crippling sanctions, wielding economic power like a scalpel. Ambassador Terran, the overlord hissed, its voice a low, menacing rasp. I trust your people now understand the cost of defiance. 47's response was measured, delivered with an air of humility. Earth seeks only to learn from its mistakes. Perhaps there are opportunities to collaborate. The overlord regarded him with an amused flick of its forked tongue. A diplomat's tongue is as slippery as a traitor's. Let us hope yours carries the weight of sincerity. As the meal progressed, 47 noted the overlord's penchant for grandiosity. It thrived in displays of wealth and control, yet its vanity blinded it to subtle dangers. This weakness would soon become its undoing. Later that evening, 47 attended a trading summit held in the station bazaar, an opulent marketplace filled with goods from across the galaxy. Holographic advertisements lit the air, projecting wares in dazzling displays of color. Alien traders hawked exotic artifacts, bioengineered pets, and rare minerals. The overlord presided over the event from an elevated platform, surrounded by its advisors and armed guards. Amid the vibrant chaos, 47 moved with calculated ease. Dressed impeccably in his ambassadorial attire, he navigated the crowd, his keen eyes scanning for vulnerabilities. He had already arranged the next step in his plan, a staged accident involving a rare and volatile fuel crystal being auctioned at the bazaar. The crystal, housed in a reinforced containment field, was the centerpiece of the event. Its value lay not only in its scarcity, but in its potential for catastrophic energy release if mishandled. Using a remote hacking device concealed in his cufflink, 47 subtly tampered with the crystal's containment parameters, setting a timed cascade failure. As the auction reached its peak, the overlord stepped forward, its booming voice dominating the bazaar. Behold, it declared, gesturing to the crystal, a symbol of power and prosperity, available only to those who command true influence. The crowd's attention was riveted, and 47 slipped into position, standing just close enough to the platform to feign concern, yet far enough to avoid suspicion. He activated the final sequence. The containment field flickered, a faint but ominous hum resonating through the air. The overlord, oblivious to the danger, continued its grandiose monologue. Then, in an instant, the crystal detonated. A blinding flash of light filled the bazaar, followed by a concussive wave that sent traders and patrons scattering in panic. When the smoke cleared, the overlord lay crumpled at the foot of the platform, its golden scales scorched. The explosion had claimed its life, but the brilliance of 47's plan lay in the framing. The tampered crystal had been supplied by a rival faction notorious for dealing in unstable goods. Amid the chaos, 47 played his part flawlessly. He called for order, his authoritative tone cutting through the confusion. This was no accident, he proclaimed. We must investigate who would bring such a dangerous item to this sacred marketplace. The seeds of discord took root immediately. Two factions began accusing each other, their long-standing tensions erupting into heated arguments. In the council's chambers, debates turned venomous as alliances fractured under the weight of suspicion. As the council descended further into disarray, one figure began piecing together the pattern. General Krozak, a hulking, armored warrior from the Gorak species, had served as the council's enforcer for decades. Unlike the politicians around him, Krozak valued action over words, and he trusted instinct over appearances. Seated in his private quarters, Krozak reviewed the reports of the recent deaths. The arboreal elder's demise could be explained away as natural decay, and the strategist's fatal system malfunction seemed plausible. But the Overlord's death, occurring so soon after, defied coincidence. Krozak's claws tapped rhythmically against his console as he analyzed the data. His eyes narrowed when he noticed a detail that others had overlooked: the consistent presence of Earth's new ambassador at each incident. "Victor Terran," Krozak growled, his deep voice vibrating through the room. "You hide well, but no one escapes the hunt." Unaware of Krozak's growing suspicions, 47 prepared for his next move. He had destabilized the Council, but his mission was far from over. The most critical target still remained: Supreme Mediator Ixorus, the insectoid leader who held the Alliance together through diplomacy and force of will. Ixorus was hosting a private summit to broker peace between the warring factions. 47 knew this summit presented the perfect opportunity to strike, but it also carried immense risk. Security would be at its highest, and tensions among the Council members meant any misstep could lead to instant exposure. In his quarters, 47 reviewed the mediator's schedule, analyzing every potential vulnerability. His calm exterior betrayed none of the complexity churning in his mind. With each move, he grew closer to completing his mission, but also closer to the edge of a precipice where discovery was inevitable. As he adjusted his tie and stepped into the corridor, a message flashed on his communicator. Krozak requests an audience. For the first time, 47 allowed himself a faint smirk. The game was accelerating, and the stakes had never been higher. The Galactic Council's Grand Assembly Chamber was silent, a stark contrast to the chaos unraveling behind closed doors. The Supreme Mediator, Ixorus, stood at the central podium, its chitinous form gleaming under the harsh light. With its segmented limbs and multifaceted eyes, Ixorus exuded an aura of control, its voice a steady hum that resonated across the amphitheater. "Order must prevail," Ixorus declared. "We cannot allow suspicion to fragment the unity we have built." From his seat among the delegates, Agent 47, under the guise of Ambassador Victor Terran, observed the insectoid leader with unflinching calm. The Supreme Mediator was a symbol of stability, the glue that held the Council's diverse factions together. Its death would be the final blow to the already crumbling alliance. But 47's task had grown more complex. General Krozak had requested a meeting earlier, and though 47 had deflected with a carefully crafted excuse, he knew the warrior's suspicions could not be dismissed. Time was running out, and every moment increased the risk of exposure. Later that evening, Ixorus hosted the Summit of Accord, a last-ditch effort to mend the growing fractures among the Council. The gathering was held in the Harmonic Hall, a vaulted chamber renowned for its acoustics, where even whispers carried weight. Delegates from every faction attended, each cloaked in barely concealed mistrust. 47 arrived precisely on time, his polished demeanor masking the meticulous preparation behind his every move. In his briefcase rested the tools for the final act: a vial of biotoxin tailored to Ixorus's physiology, and a stealth emitter to mask his actions from surveillance systems. The summit began with customary formalities. Ixorus addressed the assembly, its words measured and conciliatory. "The deaths of our esteemed members are not merely tragedies. They are assaults on the foundation of this council. Yet, in this time of loss, we must unite, not divide." As the delegates murmured their approval or skepticism, 47's eyes scanned the room. Krozak was there, seated at the edge of the chamber, his hulking form a coiled spring of vigilance. The general's gaze locked on 47 for a brief moment, and the faintest flicker of recognition passed between them. At a scheduled recess, 47 made his move. Ixorus retreated to its private chamber to review notes for the next session. The chamber was a minimalist space, adorned only with a crystalline console and the glowing glyphs of an alien language. Using his credentials, 47 gained access, his every step precise and silent. Ixorus turned as he entered, its antennae twitching in acknowledgement. "Ambassador Terran," it said, its voice a low hum. "This is an unexpected visit. I wanted to express my gratitude." 47 replied smoothly. "Your leadership is an inspiration, not just to the Council, but to all species." Ixorus's multifaceted eyes regarded him with curiosity. "Gratitude is a rare commodity among diplomats. Speak your mind." 47 approached the console, his movements deliberate. With a flick of his wrist, he activated the stealth emitter, shrouding the room in a temporary field of electromagnetic distortion. To Ixorus, it appeared as though nothing had changed, but to surveillance systems, the next moments would go unrecorded. "I believe Earth can offer the Council a new perspective," 47 said, his tone a masterful blend of deference and authority. As he spoke, his hand brushed the console, releasing the biotoxin into the chamber's air circulation system. Ixorus tilted its head, as if sensing a change. "Perspective, Ambassador, is shaped by intention." "Precisely," 47 replied, stepping back. "And intentions must align for true progress." The Supreme Mediator's movements grew sluggish, its antennae drooping as the toxin took hold. A faint clicking sound escaped its mandibles, almost like a question, before its body crumpled to the floor. 47 knelt briefly, ensuring there were no signs of foul play. The biotoxin was designed to mimic a natural cardiac event unique to Ixorus's species, leaving no traceable evidence. Satisfied, he deactivated the stealth emitter and exited the chamber with the same calm precision he had entered. The alarm was raised within minutes. Ixorus's death plunged the summit into chaos, with delegates shouting accusations and demanding answers. 47 maintained his composure, blending seamlessly into the confusion. But as he moved toward the exit, a massive shadow blocked his path. "Ambassador Terran," Krozak growled, his towering frame looming over 47. "A word." The general's tone left no room for negotiation. He led 47 into a side corridor, the air heavy with tension. "I've seen your kind before," Krozak said, his voice low and menacing. Smooth words, impeccable timing. Always present, yet invisible. His claws flex, the sound like knives scraping stone. "Tell me, how does Earth benefit from this chaos?" 47 met the general's piercing gaze, his expression unreadable. "Your accusations are baseless, General. Earth seeks peace. Nothing more." Krozak's lip curled in a snarl. "Peace? You've sown nothing but death and discord since you arrived. I'll find proof. And when I do, there won't be a corner of this galaxy where you can hide." The tension hung heavy, but Krozak made no move to detain him. For now, suspicion alone wasn't enough. 47 nodded curtly and walked away, his heart rate as steady as a stride. The Galactic Council disbanded within days. The death of the Supreme Mediator was the final fracture, shattering any pretense of unity. Factions turned on one another, blaming rival species for the assassinations. Trade routes were severed, alliances dissolved, and once thriving worlds prepared for war. From the safety of an unmarked shuttle, 47 watched the Council station shrink into the void. His mission was complete. Humanity's oppressors were now too preoccupied with their own survival to notice Earth rebuilding in the shadows. In a secure communication chamber aboard the shuttle, Director Harvey's hologram flickered to life. "Report," Harvey demanded, his voice sharp. "Mission accomplished," 47 replied. "The Council is finished." Harvey's expression remained impassive, but there was a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. "And your cover?" "Compromised," 47 admitted. "General Krozak suspects, but he has no evidence." Harvey leaned forward, his tone grave. "He's a dangerous adversary. Be prepared if he comes for you." 47's gaze was cold, his voice unyielding. "He won't get the chance." The hologram faded, leaving 47 alone in the dimly lit chamber. He leaned back in his seat, his mind already calculating the next step. Humanity had struck its first blow against the galaxy's oppressors. But this was only the beginning. Somewhere in the stars, new threats awaited, and 47 knew he would be called upon again. As the shuttle sped into the infinite black, he allowed himself a moment of stillness. The galaxy was a dangerous place, but so was he.